I saw my daughter-in-law throw a leather suitcase into the lake and drive away without looking back. I ran toward the shore and, with great effort, pulled that waterlogged suitcase out of the water. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. That was when I heard a muffled sound coming from inside. "Please, let it not be what I'm thinking," I murmured, my trembling fingers trying to open the wet zipper. It was stuck. But finally, it gave way. And in that instant, my heart simply stopped. What I saw inside made me shudder in a way I had never felt in my 62 years of life. But before I continue, check if you've subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you are watching this video from. We love knowing how far our stories reach. My name is Karen. I'm 63 years old, and I've lived alone since I buried my only son, Richard, 8 months ago. The house on the edge of Lake Clearwater, in Washington State, which was once full of laughter and memories, now seemed too big, too silent. That September afternoon, while I was drinking my iced tea on the porch, something caught my attention. My daughter-in-law Sylvia's silver sedan appeared on the dirt road, kicking up dust. She was driving like a maniac, at a speed abnormal for that winding road. Something was very wrong. I put my cup on the porch railing and squinted to see better. Sylvia slammed on the brakes at the lake's edge with the engine still running. She jumped out of the car as if she were being chased. Her face was flushed, her hair disheveled. She popped the trunk with such force I thought she would rip the door off. That was when I saw the suitcase, that brown leather suitcase I had given her myself when she married Richard. "So you can carry your dreams everywhere," I had told her on that occasion. How naive I was. Sylvia dragged the suitcase out of the car. It was heavy. You could tell by the way her body bent, how her arms trembled. She looked around, nervous, guilty. I will never forget that look. "Sylvia!" I screamed from the porch, but she didn't hear me, or she pretended not to. She walked to the water's edge. Every step seemed like a struggle, as if she were carrying not just a weight, but a terrible burden. She swung the suitcase once, twice, and on the third time, she hurled it into the water. The sound of the impact broke the silence of the afternoon. The suitcase floated for a moment before beginning to sink slowly. Sylvia ran back to the car, revved the engine, tires screeching on the gravel, and disappeared down the same dirt road, leaving behind only dust and a heavy silence. I stood paralyzed for a few seconds. What had I just witnessed? Sylvia, the suitcase, the lake, the desperation in her movements. A chill ran down my spine despite the afternoon heat. My legs began to move before my mind could process what was happening. I ran down the porch steps, crossed the yard, and headed for the dirt path. The lake was about 100 yards away. I ran like I hadn't in years. My knees protested, my chest burned, but I didn't stop. When I reached the shore, I was gasping for air. My heart beat wildly against my ribs. The suitcase was still there floating, sinking little by little. The leather was soaked, dark, heavy. I entered the water without hesitating. The lake was cold, much colder than I expected. It reached my knees, then my waist. The mud at the bottom sucked at my feet. I extended my arms, grabbed one of the suitcase handles, and pulled. It was incredibly heavy. I pulled harder, my arms shaking from the effort. The water splashed my face. My clothes were completely soaked. Finally, I managed to drag the suitcase toward the shore. That was when I heard a faint, muffled sound coming from inside the suitcase. My blood froze. No. It couldn't be. Please, God, let it not be what I'm thinking. I pulled faster, with more desperation. I dragged the suitcase onto the wet sand of the shore and fell to my knees beside it. My hands sought the zipper. It was stuck, wet, corroded. My fingers kept slipping. Come on, I repeated through gritted teeth. Tears began to blur my vision. I forced the zipper once, twice. Finally, it gave way. I lifted the lid, and what I saw inside made the entire world stop. My heart stopped beating. The air got stuck in my throat. My hands flew to my mouth to stifle a scream. There, wrapped in a soaked light blue blanket, was a baby, a newborn, so small, so fragile, so motionless. His lips were blue, his skin pale as wax, his eyes closed. He wasn't moving. Oh my God, no. My hands shook so much I could barely hold him. I took him out of the suitcase with a tenderness I didn't know I still possessed. He was cold, so cold. He weighed less than a bag of sand. His little head fit in the palm of my hand. His umbilical cord was still tied with a piece of twine. Twine, not a medical clamp, common kitchen twine, as if someone had done it at home in secret, without any help. No. 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 I whispered repeatedly. I pressed my ear against his chest. Silence. Nothing. I pressed my cheek against his nose, and then I felt a puff of air, so weak I thought I had imagined it, but it was there. He was barely breathing, but he was breathing. I stood up, clutching the baby against my chest. My legs almost gave out. I ran toward the house faster than I had ever run in my life. Water dripped from my clothes. My bare feet bled from the stones on the path, but I felt no pain whatsoever. Only terror, only urgency, only the desperate need to save this little life shivering against me. I burst into the house screaming. I don't know what I was screaming. Maybe help, maybe God, maybe nothing coherent. I grabbed the kitchen phone with one hand while holding the baby with the other. I dialed 911. My fingers slipped on the keys. The phone almost fell twice. 911. "What is your emergency?" a female voice said. "A baby. I found a baby in the lake. He's not responding. He's cold. He's blue. Please, please, send help. Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Tell me your address." I gave my address near Seattle. The words came out in stumbles. The operator instructed me to place the baby on a flat surface. I swept everything off the kitchen table with one arm. Everything fell to the floor. Plates, papers, nothing mattered. I put the baby on the table. So small, so fragile, so motionless. "Is he breathing?" I asked the operator. My voice was a high-pitched shriek I didn't recognize. "You tell me. Look at his chest. Is it moving?" I looked, observing with attention a movement almost imperceptible, so subtle that I had to lean in to see it. "Yes, I think so. Very little." "Okay, listen carefully. I'm going to guide you. I need you to take a clean towel and dry the baby very carefully. Then wrap him up to keep him warm. The ambulance is already on the way." I did what she told me. I grabbed towels from the bathroom. I dried his little body with clumsy, desperate movements. Every second seemed like an eternity. I wrapped the baby in clean towels. I picked him up again, cradled him against my chest, and started rocking him without realizing it, an ancestral instinct I thought I had forgotten. "Hang on, little one," I whispered to him. "Please hang on. They're coming. They're coming to help you." The minutes that followed until the ambulance arrived were the longest of my life. I sat on the kitchen floor with the baby against my chest. I sang. I don't know what I sang. Maybe the same lullaby I used to sing to Richard when he was small. Maybe just nonsense sounds. I just needed him to know he wasn't alone, that someone was holding him, that someone wanted him to live. The sirens broke the silence. Red and white lights flashed through the windows. I ran to the door. 2 paramedics jumped out of the ambulance. An older man with a gray beard and a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She took the baby from my arms with an efficiency that broke my heart. She examined him quickly, pulled out a stethoscope, listened. Her face showed no emotion, but I saw her shoulders tense up. "Severe hypothermia, possible water aspiration," she told her partner. "We need to move now." They placed him on a small stretcher, put an oxygen mask on him. Their hands worked fast, connecting wires, monitors, things I didn't understand. The man looked at me. "Are you coming with us?" It wasn't a question. I got into the ambulance, sat on the small side bench. I couldn't stop looking at the baby, so tiny amidst all that equipment. The ambulance took off. Sirens wailing. The world passed by out of focus through the windows. "How did you find him?" asked the paramedic while she kept working. "In a suitcase, in the lake. I saw someone throw it." She looked at me, then she looked at her partner. I saw something in her eyes. Concern, maybe suspicion, maybe pity. "Did you see who it was?" I opened my mouth, then closed it. "Sylvia, my daughter-in-law, Richard's widow. The woman who cried at his funeral as if her world had ended. The same woman who had just tried to drown a baby. How could I say that? How could I even believe it myself?" "Yes," I said finally. "I saw who it was." We arrived at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle in less than 15 minutes. The emergency doors opened. A dozen people in scrubs surrounded the stretcher. They were shouting numbers, medical terms, orders. They took the baby through a set of double doors. I tried to follow them, but a nurse stopped me. "Ma'am, you have to stay here. The doctors are working. We need some information." She took me to a waiting room. Cream-colored walls, plastic chairs, the smell of disinfectant. I sat down. I was shaking from head to toe. I didn't know if it was from the cold of my wet clothes or from shock. Probably both. The nurse sat across from me. She was older than the paramedic, maybe my age. She had kind wrinkles around her eyes. Her badge read, Nurse Sophia. "I'm going to need you to tell me everything that happened," she said with a soft voice. And I told every detail, from the moment I saw Sylvia's car until I opened the suitcase. Sophia took notes on a tablet, nodding, not interrupting. When I finished, she sighed deeply. "The police will want to speak with you," she said. "This is attempted homicide, maybe worse." Attempted homicide. The words floated in the air like black birds. My daughter-in-law, my son's wife, a murderer. I couldn't process it. I couldn't understand. Sophia put her hand over mine. "You did the right thing. You saved a life today." But that wasn't how I felt. It felt as if I had discovered something terrible, something I couldn't push back into the darkness, something that would change everything forever. 2 hours passed before a doctor came to talk to me. He was young, maybe 35. He had deep circles under his eyes and hands that smelled of antibacterial soap. "The baby is stable," he said. "For now, he is in the NICU neonatal intensive care unit. He suffered severe hypothermia and aspirated water. His lungs are compromised. The next 48 hours are critical." "Is he going to live?" I asked. My voice sounded broken. "I don't know," he said with brutal honesty. "We are going to do everything we can." The police arrived half an hour later. 2 officers, a woman in her 40s with hair pulled back in a tight bun, and a younger man taking notes. The woman introduced herself as Detective Laura Jenkins. She had dark eyes that seemed to see through lies. They asked me the same questions over and over from different angles. I described the car, the exact time, Sylvia's movements, the suitcase, everything. Laura looked at me with an intensity that made me feel guilty despite having done nothing wrong. "And are you sure it was your daughter-in-law?" "Completely sure." "Completely. Why would she do something like that?" "I don't know. Where is she now?" "I don't know." "When was the last time you spoke to her before today?" 3 weeks ago, on the anniversary of my son's death." Laura wrote something down. She exchanged a look with her partner. "We're going to need you to come to the precinct tomorrow to make a formal statement, and you cannot contact Sylvia under any circumstances. Understood?" I nodded. What was I going to say to her anyway? Why did you try to kill a baby? Why did you throw him in the lake like trash? Why? 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 The officers left. Sophia returned with a blanket and a cup of hot tea. "You should go home, rest a bit, change your clothes." But I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave that baby alone in the hospital. That baby I had held against my chest, who had exhaled his last breath of hope in my arms. I stayed in the waiting room. Sophia brought me dry clothes from the hospital supply, scrub pants and a t-shirt that was too big for me. I changed in the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like I had aged 10 years in one afternoon. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in that plastic chair watching the clock. Every hour I got up and asked about the baby. The nurses gave me the same answer. Stable, critical, fighting. At 3 a.m., Father Thomas, the priest from my church, appeared. Someone must have called him. He sat beside me in silence. He didn't say anything for a long time. He was simply there. Sometimes that is all you need. A presence. Proof that you aren't completely alone in hell. God tests us in many ways, he said finally. "This doesn't seem like a test," I replied. "It seems like a curse." He nodded. He didn't try to convince me otherwise, and I appreciated that more than any sermon. When the sun began to rise, I knew that nothing would be like before. I had crossed a line. I had seen something I couldn't unsee. Whatever came next, I would have to face it. Because that baby, that little being fighting for every breath in the next room, had become my responsibility. I hadn't chosen this, but I couldn't abandon him either. Not after pulling him from the water. Not after feeling his heartbeat against mine. Dawn arrived without me even realizing it. Light streamed through the waiting room windows, painting everything a pale orange. I had spent the whole night in that plastic chair. My back ached. My eyes burned. But I couldn't leave. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the suitcase sinking. I saw that motionless little body. I saw the blue lips. Sophia appeared at 7 a.m. with coffee and a sandwich wrapped in foil. "You need to eat something," she said, putting them in my hands. I wasn't hungry, but I ate anyway because she stood there waiting. The coffee was too hot and burned my tongue. The sandwich tasted like cardboard, but I swallowed. I chewed. I pretended to be a normal person, doing normal things on a normal morning. "The baby is still stable," Sophia said, sitting beside me. "His body temperature is rising. His lungs are responding to treatment. It's a good sign. Can I see him?" She shook her head. "Not yet. Immediate family only. And we don't even know who the family is." Family. The word hit me like a stone. That baby had to have a family, a mother, Sylvia, but she had tried to kill him. So, who was the father? Where was he? Why had no one reported him missing? The questions piled up in my head without answers. At 9, Detective Jenkins returned. She was alone this time. She sat across from me with a file folder in her hands. Her expression was hard, inquisitive. She looked at me as if I were the suspect. "Karen, I need to ask you a few more questions," she said, opening the folder. "I already told you everything I know. I know, but some inconsistencies have come up. Inconsistencies, the word floated between us like an accusation. I felt my stomach tighten. "What kind of inconsistencies?" Laura pulled out a photograph, placed it on the small table between us. It was Sylvia's car, but it was in a parking lot, not at the lake's edge. This photo was taken by a security camera at a supermarket 30 minutes from here yesterday at 5:20 p.m. 5:20 p.m., 10 minutes after I had seen her at the lake. Impossible. I looked at the photo more closely. It was her car, license plate and all. "But that can't be. There has to be a mistake," I said. "I saw her. I was there. I saw her throw the suitcase." "You were sure," she said. But my voice sounded less convincing now. Laura leaned forward. "Karen, I need you to be honest with me. How is your relationship with Sylvia? Do you get along?" And there it was. The real question, the one I had been waiting for since the police appeared. Because we didn't get along. We never got along. From the day Richard introduced me to her, I knew there was something wrong with her. She was too perfect, too calculating, too interested in the money Richard made as an engineer. "We aren't close," I admitted. "Do you blame her for your son's death?" "What?" My voice was too loud, too defensive. "It's a simple question. Do you blame Sylvia for Richard's death?" The accident, that's what everyone called it. Richard was driving home after dinner with Sylvia. It was raining. The car skidded. Hit a tree. Richard died on impact. Sylvia walked away with minor scratches. It always seemed strange to me, always seemed convenient, but I never had proof. Just a heartbroken mother looking for someone to blame. "I don't see what that has to do with the baby." "It has everything to do with it," Laura said, closing the folder. "Because we haven't been able to locate Sylvia. She disappeared. Her house is empty. Her phone is off, and you are the only person who claims to have seen her yesterday." Her words fell on me like ice water. She was accusing me, not directly, but the insinuation was there, clear as day. She thought I had invented everything, that I had found the baby some other way and was blaming Sylvia out of revenge. "I didn't lie," I said through gritted teeth. "I saw what I saw. Then we have to find Sylvia. And fast. Because if she is the mother of this baby, he is in grave danger. And if she isn't, then we have an even bigger mystery on our hands." Laura stood up, handed me a card with her number. "If you remember anything else, any detail, call me." She left, leaving me with more questions than answers. I stood there with the card in my hand, wondering if I was losing my mind. I had seen Sylvia. I was sure of it. But now doubt was seeping in like poison. What if I was wrong? What if it was someone else? What if my grief and resentment made me see what I wanted to see? Father Thomas returned at noon. He held a rosary in his hands. "Shall we pray?" he asked. I'm not very religious, never was. But in that moment, I needed something bigger than myself, something to tell me I wasn't alone in this. I nodded. We prayed together in hushed tones. The familiar words calmed me, even if I didn't understand how they worked. When we finished, I felt a little less broken, "The police think I'm lying," I told him. "The truth always comes to light," he replied, "even if it takes time." But we didn't have time. That baby was fighting for his life, and somewhere Sylvia was hiding or fleeing or planning her next move. At 3:00 the afternoon, a different doctor came to see me. A woman, older this time, with thick glasses and a serious expression. "We need your authorization to run some tests on the baby," she said. "I'm not family." "We know, but you are the only responsible party right now. Child Protective Services is on the way, but in the meantime, we need to act. The baby needs blood work. We need to know if he has any medical conditions, if he was exposed to drugs, if he has injuries we didn't detect." I signed the papers. I didn't even read them completely. I just wanted them to do whatever was necessary to save him. 2 hours later, the social worker appeared. Marcia was young, too young for that job. I thought maybe 25 years old. Short hair, gray suit, a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Karen," she said, sitting beside me, "I need to ask you some questions about your situation. I understand you found the baby." The story again, the questions again. But Marcia was different. She didn't look at me with suspicion, she looked at me with pity, which was somehow worse. "Do you live alone?" she asked. "Yes." "Do you have a stable income?" "I have my late husband's pension and some savings." "Criminal record?" "No." "Mental health issues? Depression? Anxiety?" I hesitated. After Richard died, I took antidepressants for 3 months. My doctor said it was normal, that grief sometimes needs chemical help. I stopped when I started feeling better. "I had depression after my son's death," I admitted. "But it's over." Marcia wrote something down. I couldn't see what. "The baby is going to need a foster home when he is discharged from the hospital," she said. "If he is discharged, social services will look for certified foster families. In the meantime, he will remain in state custody." State custody. Those words broke something inside me. That baby I had held against my chest, who had breathed his first breath of life in my arms, would be handed to strangers, to a system, to people who would see him as just another file, just another number. What if I wanted to? The words came out before I could stop them. What if I wanted to take care of him? Marcia looked at me surprised, then skeptical. "Mrs. Karen, you are 63 years old. You are not a certified foster parent, you have no legal relationship with the baby, and you are involved in an active criminal investigation. I didn't do anything wrong. I saved his life." "I know, but the system has protocols. The best interest of the child comes first and, frankly, your age and your recent emotional situation are factors we have to consider." I felt as if I had been slapped. Too old, too unstable, too broken. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was crazy to even think it. But when I closed my eyes, all I saw was that fragile little body, and I knew that no one else in the world would love him like I could. That night I went home for the first time in 36 hours. Sophia convinced me. She said I needed to shower, sleep in a real bed, that the baby would be fine, that they would call me if anything changed. I drove home as the sun was setting. The lake shimmered to my right. I stopped at the same spot where I had seen Sylvia, where I had pulled out the suitcase. I got out of the car, walked to the shore. The suitcase was gone. The police had taken it as evidence, but I could see exactly where it had been. I could see my own footprints in the dry mud. I stood there as darkness fell, wondering if I would ever know the truth, wondering if Sylvia was watching from somewhere, wondering what the hell had really happened. And then my phone rang. It was the hospital. My heart stopped. "Mrs. Karen," Sophia's voice said, "you need to come back now." I drove back to the hospital, breaking every speed limit. My hands shook on the steering wheel. My heart beat so loud I could hear it over the engine. Sophia hadn't given details over the phone, just said, "Come back now." Those words were enough to fill my head with the worst possible scenarios. The baby had died. It had to be that. Why else would they call me with such urgency? He had fought for 2 days and finally his little body had given out. It hadn't been enough. I hadn't been fast enough. I parked haphazardly, taking up 2 spots. I ran toward the emergency doors. Sophia was waiting for me at the entrance. Her expression was serious, but there was something else, something I couldn't decipher. "He is alive," she said immediately, as if she knew exactly what I was thinking. "The baby is alive, but you have to come with me." She led me down corridors I didn't know. We went up to the 3rd floor, past the NICU, kept walking. Finally, we arrived at a small conference room. Inside were Detective Jenkins, Marcia, the social worker, and a man I didn't know. He was older, maybe 60. He wore a dark suit and glasses. He had the face of a lawyer. "Please, sit down," Laura said, pointing to a chair. I sat. My legs felt like jelly. Everyone watched me with an intensity that made me want to run. "We received the results of the baby's DNA analysis," Laura said. Her words fell like stones in still water. DNA. I didn't understand why they had done that. What were they looking for? "And?" I asked when the silence became unbearable. Laura exchanged a look with the man in the suit. He nodded, opened a folder, and pulled out several printed sheets. He put them in front of me. "The baby is a boy. He was born approximately 3 days ago, according to medical exams." Laura paused. "And Karen. He is your grandson." The world stopped. The words made no sense. I heard them, but my brain refused to process them. My grandson. Impossible. Richard died 8 months ago. He left no children, no pregnancy, nothing. "That is impossible," I whispered. "The results are conclusive," said the man in the suit. "I am Dr. Ernest Sutton, a specialist in forensic genetics. We ran the tests twice to be sure. The baby shares approximately 25% of his DNA with you. He is definitely your biological grandson. Son of your son Richard, son of Richard, my Richard." I felt as if someone had hit me in the chest with a sledgehammer. Richard had a son he never knew, a son someone had tried to drown in a lake. But how? My voice sounded distant. "Richard died 8 months ago. Sylvia never said anything about a pregnancy." "Exactly," Laura said, leaning forward. "Sylvia was pregnant during the accident. According to our calculations, she got pregnant approximately a month before Richard's death, which means she knew." The room was spinning. Sylvia knew she was pregnant when Richard died. Why didn't she say anything? Why did she hide the pregnancy for 9 months? Why did she give birth in secret and then try to kill her own son? "I don't understand," I said. Tears were beginning to blur my vision. Why would she do something like that? It's her son, Richard's son. "That is what we have to find out," Laura said. "But there is more, Karen. I need you to listen very carefully to what I am about to tell you." I braced myself. I didn't know for what, but I knew what was coming would be worse. "We were investigating your son's accident, and there are inconsistencies, huge inconsistencies." "What kind of inconsistencies?" "Richard's car was examined after the accident. The official report said it was a skid due to the rain, but we asked for it to be reviewed again. They found evidence of tampering with the brakes. Someone sabotaged him." The word fell like a bomb. Sabotage. Murder. My son hadn't died in an accident. He had been murdered. "Sylvia," I said. "It wasn't a question." "She is our prime suspect," Laura admitted. "But we need proof and we need to find her. She has disappeared completely. She hasn't used her phone, hasn't touched her bank accounts. It's like she vanished into thin air." I got up from the chair. I needed to move. I needed air. I walked to the window. Outside, Seattle shimmered with millions of lights. Normal life, normal people, while I was trapped in this nightmare. "My son," I whispered against the glass. "My baby." "She killed him." No one answered. There was nothing to say. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Marcia. "There is one more thing you need to know," she said softly. "About the baby, about his future." I turned around. Her eyes were kind, but sad. "Given that the baby is your biological grandson, you have legal rights. You can request custody." But she raised a hand before I could speak. "It will be a long process. There will be evaluations, home visits, interviews, psychological assessments, and in the meantime, the baby will remain in state care." "No." The word came out like a roar. "You are not taking him from me. He is all I have left of Richard. He is my grandson, my blood." "I understand," Marcia said. "Believe me, I understand. But the system has protocols, and after everything that happened, we have to ensure the baby is safe. He will be safer with me than with any stranger. Maybe. But that decision is not up to me. It is up to a judge and the welfare of the child. Dr. Sutton spoke for the first time since his initial revelation. There is another factor we must consider. The baby suffered severe trauma, hypothermia, near drowning. The next few weeks will be critical for his development. He will need specialized care, therapy, constant medical monitoring. I will do whatever is necessary, I said. Whatever it takes. Laura stood up. Karen, I need you to understand one thing. You are not a suspect. We believe your story. But you can't simply keep the baby, because he is your grandson. There is a legal process, and in the meantime, our priority is finding Sylvia. We need your help. How? Think, Sylvia. Did she ever mention any special place, any property, any friend or relative she might be hiding with? I closed my eyes. I thought about all the conversations I had with Sylvia during the 3 years she was married to Richard. They were few, superficial. She never spoke of her family, never mentioned her past. It was as if she had sprung from nowhere the day she met Richard. She has an aunt, I said suddenly. Down south, near the border. Richard mentioned it once. He said Sylvia grew up with her in San Diego. Laura wrote quickly. Name? I don't know. Richard never said. Just aunt. It's a start, Laura said. We're going to investigate. Everyone left, except Sophia. She stayed with me in that cold and empty conference room. Do you want to see your grandson? She asked. I nodded, unable to speak. She took me through security doors to the NICU. She made me wash my hands, put on a sterile gown. Then she led me to an incubator in the corner, and there he was, my grandson, Richard's son, so small, so fragile, connected to tubes and wires, but alive, breathing, fighting. He had Richard's dark hair, Richard's nose, Richard's long fingers. Can I touch him? I whispered. Yes, just be gentle. I extended my hand through the opening in the incubator. I touched his little hand. It was so soft, so warm. His little fingers closed around my index finger. A reflex, but it felt like a promise. Hello, little one, I whispered. I am your grandma, and I promise I am going to protect you. No one will ever hurt you again. I swear on your father's memory. Sophia put a hand on my shoulder. He needs a name, she said softly, for the hospital records, until we find the mother or until a judge decides a name. Richard had wanted to name his first son Matthew, like my father. He told me once during a Christmas dinner, if I have a son, I'll call him Matthew. Matthew, I said. His name is Matthew. I stayed there, all night sitting next to the incubator, holding his hand, singing him the songs I used to sing to Richard, promising him a future I didn't know if I could give him, but promising it anyway, because now I knew the truth. This baby wasn't a stranger I had found by chance. He was my blood, my family, all that remained of my murdered son, and I wasn't going to let anyone take him from me, not the system, not Sylvia, no one. The following days were a bureaucratic hell. I woke up every morning at 5, showered, dressed, drove to the hospital. I spent the day next to Matthew's incubator, and in the afternoon came the visits. Lawyers, social workers, police, all with folders, all with questions, all deciding if I was good enough to raise my own grandson. Marcia appeared on the third day with a list of requirements. She read it in a monotone voice, as if reciting an appliance instruction manual. You will need a criminal background check, a complete psychological evaluation, a medical exam, income verification, home inspection, personal references from at least 3 non-family members, and you have to complete a 40-hour childcare course. 40 hours. As if I hadn't raised a son to adulthood, as if I didn't know how to change a diaper or prepare a bottle. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded and took the papers she handed me. How long will all this take? I asked. If you're lucky, 6 weeks. If not, 3 months. 3 months. Matthew would be in foster care for 3 months, while I jumped through bureaucratic hoops to prove I deserved to raise him. And what about him in the meantime? When he is discharged from the hospital, he will go to a certified temporary foster family. He will receive adequate care. You will be able to visit him twice a week under supervision. Twice a week under supervision. As if I were a threat, as if I weren't the person who saved him from drowning. That night I called Father Thomas. I needed references. I needed people to say I wasn't crazy, that I was capable, that I could do this. He came to my house the next day. He sat in my kitchen drinking the same tea I used to make for Richard as a child. "Of course I will help you," he said. "You are one of the strongest women I know. This child is lucky to have you." But I didn't feel strong. I felt old, tired, scared. I was 63. How was I going to chase a 2-year-old when I was 65? How was I going to help him with homework when I was 70? How would I be present at his graduation if I made it to 80? "I'm too old for this," I said aloud for the first time. Father Thomas looked at me over his cup. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to Isaac. Age is just a number when there is love involved. I wanted to believe him. I really wanted to. On the 4th day, Sophia taught me how to care for Matthew, how to hold his small head, how to change his tiny diapers, how to prepare formula at the exact temperature. My hands shook at first. I had forgotten how fragile newborns are, how dependent, how terribly delicate. "You are doing great," Sophia would say every time I panicked. But it didn't feel great. It felt like walking on thin ice. One false move and everything would come crashing down. On the 5th day, Detective Jenkins returned with news. "We found Sylvia's aunt," she said. "She lives in a small town near the border, close to San Diego. We went to question her and she says she hasn't seen Sylvia in 2 years. She says they had a fight, that Sylvia owed her money, $1,000, never paid it back. Money, it always came back to money with Sylvia. Richard earned a good salary as an engineer, over $120,000 a year. He had savings, a life insurance policy of $500,000. Sylvia was the beneficiary. Did she receive the insurance?" I asked. Laura nodded. 4 months ago, $500,000 deposited into her account. 2 weeks later, she transferred everything to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. We are trying to trace it, but it is complicated. $500,000, the value of my son's life. And she had hidden it in some tax haven while planning to kill her baby. Why? I said the question that tormented me every night. Why kill the baby? She could have given him up for adoption. She could have left him at a hospital. Why try to drown him? Laura stayed silent for a long moment. "There is a theory," she said finally. "We were investigating Richard's finances. We found something interesting. 2 weeks before he died, he changed his will. He left everything to his future children, not to Sylvia, to his children. The air left my lungs. Richard knew. Somehow he knew Sylvia was pregnant and changed his will to protect his son. She killed him for money," I whispered. "We believe so. And then she discovered the money would go to the baby if he was born alive, so she decided to eliminate him too. The sheer evil of it left me speechless. She had killed my son, carried the pregnancy to term, given birth alone, and then tried to drown her own baby, all for money. Do you have enough to arrest her? When we find her, yes, but she is still missing. She's smart. She knows we are looking for her." The days turned into weeks. Matthew got stronger. The doctors removed the tubes one by one. He started breathing on his own, feeding on his own, crying with strong, healthy lungs. It was a medical miracle. According to the doctors, no baby who had gone through what he went through should be evolving so well. But I knew it was more than medicine. It was willpower. It was Richard's spirit living in that small body, fighting, surviving, refusing to give up. I completed all the requirements. The background check came back clean. The medical exam showed I was healthy for my age. The psychological evaluation was harder. A young woman with glasses asked me questions for 3 hours. "How did you deal with your son's death? How do you feel regarding Sylvia? Are you trying to replace Richard with this baby?" That last question irritated me. I am not replacing anyone. I am saving my grandson. It is different. She wrote something down. I didn't know if it was good or bad. The home inspection was humiliating. 2 women checked every corner, opened closets, checked the refrigerator, measured windows to see if they were safe, counted smoke detectors, asked about my emergency plan in case of fire. You will need a certified crib, a changing table, safety gates on all stairs, locks on cabinets, outlet covers. I spent $2,000 on baby things. My pension covered my basic expenses comfortably, but this was extra. I had to use my savings, but I didn't care. Matthew was worth it. The childcare course was the worst. 15 young mothers and me. They all looked at me as if I were the confused grandmother who had walked into the wrong class. The instructor was 25. She explained things I already knew with insulting slowness. Babies need to eat every 3 hours. Babies cry when they are hungry or wet. Never shake a baby. I nodded and took notes, although I wanted to scream that I had raised a son to adulthood, that I knew exactly what I was doing, but I needed that certificate. So I swallowed my pride and pretended to learn. 6 weeks after finding Matthew in the lake, Marcia appeared at the hospital with a small smile. "You completed all requirements." She said, "The judge will review your case next week. If everything goes well, you will be able to have temporary custody in 2 weeks." 2 weeks. After 42 days of bureaucratic hell, I could finally take my grandson home. But that same night, when everything seemed to be improving, my phone rang. It was Laura. Her voice was tense. "Karen, I need you to come to the precinct now. We found something about Richard you need to see." I arrived at the station with a knot in my stomach. Laura was waiting for me at the entrance. Her face was more serious than usual. She took me down narrow corridors to an interrogation room. On the table was a cardboard box. Inside, I recognized Richard's belongings: his wallet, his watch, his broken phone, the things returned to me after the accident. "What is this?" I asked. "We were finally able to unlock his phone," Laura said. "Our tech worked on it for weeks, and we found something." She pulled out a manila envelope, opened it, and spread several printed sheets on the table. They were screenshots of text messages between Richard and Sylvia, dated 2 weeks before his death. I read the first one. It was from Richard to Sylvia. "We need to talk. About the baby." Sylvia's response: "I don't know what you're talking about." Richard again: "I found the pregnancy test in the bathroom. Why didn't you tell me?" A silence of 3 hours. Then, "Sylvia, I wasn't ready to tell you. I was scared." "Scared of what?" "I am your husband. We are going to be parents. This is wonderful." Another silence. Then, "I don't want to have it." I felt as if I had been punched. I kept reading. My hands shook. "Richard, what do you mean you don't want to have it?" "Sylvia, I'm not ready. I don't want to be a mother. I want to travel, live, not be tied down to a baby. It's our son. It's a mistake. Don't say that, please. We can make it work. I will help you. My mother will help us. I don't want help. I want my life back." The messages became more intense. Richard pleading, Sylvia resisting, until I reached the last exchange the day before the accident. "Sylvia, I spoke with a lawyer. If you decide not to have the baby, I will divorce you. And if you have it and don't want to raise it, I will fight for full custody. I am not going to let you hurt my son. Richard, you are going to regret this. Is that a threat?" There was no response. The next day, Richard was dead. I dropped the papers. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. "She killed him," I said. "She killed him because he was going to protect the baby." "That is what we believe," Laura said. "And there is more." We checked Sylvia's phone records from that week. She made 3 calls to an independent mechanic, Carl Miller. We brought him in for questioning. And what did he say? Nothing at first, but when we showed him evidence of the bank transfers Sylvia made to him $2,000 the day before the accident, he started talking. He admitted she paid him to sabotage the brakes on Richard's car. I felt sick. I had to sit down. Sylvia had planned it all. She had hired someone to kill my son and made it look like an accident. Why would Carl do something like that? Debts. Gambling. He owed $15,000 to dangerous people. Sylvia offered $2,000 immediately and $3,000 later. He accepted. He is arrested now as an accessory to murder. And Sylvia, we have an arrest warrant for her for first-degree murder and attempted murder, but we still can't find her. She is like a ghost. I sat in that cold room processing everything. My son had died trying to protect his baby, and that baby was now in the hospital fighting for his life because his own mother had tried to kill him too. The cruelty of it all was unbearable. "What happens now?" I asked. "We keep looking. We have her photo at all airports, at all borders, alerts in hospitals in case she tries to change her appearance. Someone will recognize her eventually. No one disappears forever, but I wasn't so sure. Sylvia had proven to be smarter and colder than I ever imagined. If she had planned Richard's murder with such detail, she probably had an escape plan just as elaborate. I went back to the hospital that night. I sat beside Matthew's incubator. I watched him sleep. So innocent, so oblivious to the horror surrounding him. His own existence had cost his father his life. His mother had tried to kill him, and I was all that stood between him and a system that would see him as just another file. "Your daddy loved you," I whispered to him. "He died protecting you. I am going to finish what he started. I promise you." Sophia appeared with coffee. She sat beside me in silence for a while. "I heard about the messages," she said finally. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know Richard could be so strong," I said. "He was always gentle, kind, but in those messages, he was a warrior willing to fight for his son. Love does that. It makes you stronger than you ever thought possible." She was right. I was feeling it myself. I never considered myself particularly strong, but now I was fighting against the system, fighting against time, fighting against a fugitive killer, all for this baby. The following days were of preparation. I turned Richard's room into a room for Matthew. I took down the rock band posters, the soccer trophies, the college photos. I painted the walls a soft yellow. I assembled the new crib, the changing table, the musical mobile that played lullabies. It was painful to dismantle my son's sanctuary, but it was necessary. Richard was gone. Matthew was alive and needed a space to grow. Father Thomas came to bless the room. He sprinkled holy water in the corners. He prayed for Matthew's protection, for my strength, for justice for Richard. "God has a plan," he said, "even if we don't always understand it." "What kind of plan involves killing a good man and nearly drowning a baby?" I asked bitterly. "The kind of plan that turns evil into redemption. Sylvia wanted to destroy this family. But look, Richard left a legacy. You found a new purpose. This baby survived against all odds. Evil didn't win. Love won." I wanted to believe him. Some days I could. Other days all I saw was darkness. The court hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday. I wore my best outfit, the same one I wore to Richard's funeral. Marcia accompanied me. We entered a small courtroom. The judge was a woman about 50, gray hair pulled back, a stern expression, but not without kindness. She reviewed all my documents, the certificates, the references, the evaluations, the home inspection report. She read every page with meticulous attention. Finally, she looked up. "Mrs. Karen," she said, "I have reviewed your case carefully. It is highly unusual a 63-year-old requesting custody of a newborn. But it is also unusual for a grandmother to save her grandson from drowning." My heart beat so fast I was sure everyone could hear it. "I spoke with the hospital, with the social workers, with your references, and they all say the same thing, that you are dedicated, loving, capable, that this baby was lucky you were there that day." I felt tears forming, but held them back. I also read about the criminal case regarding the suspicion that the baby's mother murdered the father and then tried to kill the baby. It is horrible, unthinkable. This child needs stability, needs love, needs someone to protect him. A long pause, endless. "Therefore, I am granting temporary custody to Karen for a period of 6 months. During that time, there will be monthly visits from social services, progress evaluations, and at the end of 6 months, we will review if the custody becomes permanent. Congratulations, Grandma." The gavel struck, and suddenly I could breathe again. I cried right there in the courtroom. I cried from relief, from gratitude, from fear, from everything. Marcia hugged me. "You did it," she whispered. "You are going to be able to take him home." 3 days later, 6 weeks after pulling him from the lake, I took Matthew home. Sophia helped me buckle him into the car seat. She explained everything again. How to hold him, how to feed him, how to notice signs of trouble. "Will he be okay?" she said, "and I am just a call away if you need me." I drove home at 20 miles per hour. Every bump terrified me. Every car that passed slowly by my house made me nervous. But we arrived safe and sound. I walked into the house with Matthew in my arms, took him to his room, put him in the crib. He looked so small in that space, so vulnerable, but he was breathing. He was alive. He was safe for now. The first weeks with Matthew at home were the hardest of my life. I had forgotten how exhausting caring for a newborn is. The sleepless nights, the inexplicable crying, the constant panic that I was doing something wrong. At 30, I had raised Richard with youthful energy. At 63, every sleepless night left me wrecked, but there were also moments of pure magic. When Matthew held my finger with his little hand, when he stopped crying at the sound of my voice, when he opened those dark little eyes, identical to Richard's, and looked at me as if I were his entire world. In those moments I knew every second of exhaustion was worth it. Sophia came 3 times a week. She taught me tricks I had forgotten. How to burp him easier, how to swaddle him tight so he slept better, how to interpret his different cries. She became more than a nurse. She became a friend, a savior. "You are doing an amazing job," she would tell me always. But I didn't feel amazing. I felt terrified. Every strange noise in the night made me jump. Every car passing slowly by my house made me nervous. Sylvia was still out there somewhere, and although the police said she had probably fled the country, I couldn't shake the feeling she was close watching, waiting. I installed new locks on all doors, security cameras on the porch, an alarm connected directly to the police. I spent another $800 I didn't have, but Matthew's safety was priceless. One night, 3 weeks after bringing him home, I found something. I was organizing Richard's things I had stored in boxes, his clothes, his books, his papers. At the bottom of a box, I found a journal, brown leather, worn. I didn't know Richard kept a journal. I opened it with shaking hands. The first pages were from years ago. Thoughts about his job, his friends, nothing important. But then I reached the entries from the last year, the year he met Sylvia. "I met someone today," said an entry from 4 years ago. "Her name is Sylvia. She is beautiful, intelligent, mysterious. There is something about her I can't figure out. She intrigues me." I kept reading. The entries about Sylvia became more and more frequent. Richard was in love, completely captivated, but there were also doubts. "Sometimes I feel like I don't really know her. She never talks about her family. When I ask, she changes the subject. It's like her life started the day we met." Another entry. "I found Sylvia checking my bank statements. She said she was just curious, but something felt wrong. Why would she look at that without asking first?" And then, the one that froze my blood. Dated a month before his death. "Sylvia is pregnant. I found the test, but when I confronted her, she got furious. She said she doesn't want to have it, that it will ruin her life. How can she say that? It's our son. I changed my will today. Everything will go to the baby. I don't trust Sylvia with money. Not after seeing how she spends $500 shoes, $1,500 bags. She always wants more. But a baby is not an accessory. It is a life, and I am going to protect it at all costs." Tears fell on the pages, staining the ink. Richard knew. He knew something was wrong with Sylvia. He knew money was the only thing that mattered to her, and he had taken measures to protect his son, measures that cost him his life. The last entry was from the day he died. "Sylvia threatened me today. She said I would regret pressuring her about the baby. I don't know what that means, but it scares me. I am going to talk to my mother tomorrow, tell her everything. Maybe she can help me figure out what to do. I just know I can't let Sylvia hurt our son. I will protect him always. He never had the chance to talk to me. He died that night, and I never knew he needed help, that he was scared, that he had seen danger approaching, but not fast enough. I'm sorry, I whispered to the journal. I'm so sorry, my love. I should have realized. I should have seen something was wrong. But I couldn't change the past. I could only protect the future. I took the journal to Laura the next day. She read everything. Her jaw tightened with every page. This is crucial evidence, she said. It shows premeditation. It shows motive. When we find Sylvia, this will bury her. When are you going to find her? I asked. It's been almost 2 months. We are doing everything we can, but she is clever. She probably used fake documents to leave the country. She could be anywhere. But 3 days later, everything changed. I was feeding Matthew when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something made me do it. Hello, I said. Silence. Breathing. Then a voice I recognized immediately. Karen. Sylvia. My blood froze. I almost dropped Matthew. I looked around the living room as if she might be hiding in the shadows. Where are you? I managed to say. It doesn't matter where I am. What matters is I have something you want, and you have something I want. You don't have anything I want. I have the truth about what really happened to Richard, about why I did what I did. I bet you want to know. I already know the truth. I read Richard's journal. I know you killed him for money. I know you are a monster. A cold laugh, without humor. A monster. How dramatic. You don't know anything, Karen. Richard wasn't the saint you think he was. Don't you dare, I roared. Don't you dare speak ill of my son. Fine. You are going to call the police. Go ahead. By the time they trace this call, I'll be gone. I use burner phones. I'm not stupid. My mind was racing. I had to keep her talking. I had to record this somehow. I put the phone on speaker. I grabbed my cell phone with my free hand. I started recording. What do you want, Sylvia? I want my son. Your son? You tried to drown him. It was a mistake. A moment of madness. I was scared. I was confused. I had just given birth alone. I didn't know what I was doing, but I am better now. I want my baby back. Never. Over my dead body. That can be arranged, she said with chilling calm. Listen carefully. I want Matthew, and I want the money from Richard's will, the $500,000 insurance plus everything Richard left in a trust for the baby. That's another $300,000. $800,000 total. Everything Richard worked for. Everything he saved. Everything intended for his son. And if I refuse, then I will come for him. I am his biological mother. Legally, I have more rights than you. And when they finally catch me, I will say you stole my baby, that you threatened me, that you invented the whole Lake story to keep him. My word against yours, and I am much younger, more credible, more sympathetic. I felt dizzy, but kept recording. How do I know you won't kill us both and take everything anyway? You don't, but it is your only option. Bring the baby and the money to the old boat shed on the lake shore. You know which one? Where you and Richard used to fish. Tomorrow at midnight, alone. If I see any police, I disappear and you will never see me again. And eventually I will find a way to take Matthew from you anyway. Sylvia, wait. But the line was already dead. I stood there shaking with Matthew in one arm and the phone in the other. I had the recording. I had evidence Sylvia was alive, that she had threatened me. I called Laura immediately, sent her the audio. Perfect, she said. It's exactly what we needed. Now we are going to set a trap. You go to that meeting, but we will be there hiding, waiting, and when she shows up, we catch her. And if something goes wrong? What if she sees me with the police and flees again? She won't see us, I promise. I will have snipers positioned, teams in the shadows. She won't escape this time. And Matthew. Matthew stays with Sophia in a safe place. You aren't taking him. You're just going to pretend you brought him. Tell her he's in the car. Tell her you want to talk first, that you want to understand why she did what she did. Appeal to her ego. People like Sylvia love talking about themselves. Let her brag about how smart she was. We spent the next few hours reviewing every detail, every possible scenario. What to do if Sylvia was armed? What to do if she wasn't alone? What to do if something went wrong? My head was spinning with information. At 8 p.m., they made me eat a ham sandwich that tasted like cardboard, but I swallowed every bite. I needed energy. I needed to be alert. At 10 p.m., they wired me with a microphone, tested the audio repeatedly, made me say phrases, count to 10, shout, whisper, ensuring everything worked perfectly. Remember, Laura said, looking me in the eyes, you are not alone in there. I will be listening to every word. The team will be just a few feet away. At the slightest sign of real danger, we go in. I won't let anything happen to you. I nodded. I wanted to believe her, but fear was a cold snake coiled in my stomach. At 11:15 p.m. we left. I drove my own car. Laura was in the passenger seat, ducked down so as not to be seen from outside. The other teams were already positioned, she informed me by radio. Snipers in position, rear team ready, perimeter secured. We arrived at the boat shed at 11:40 p.m. It was exactly as I remembered. Old, dilapidated, broken windows, walls covered in graffiti. Richard and I used to come here when he was a boy. We fished off the dock behind it. Simpler times, happier times. Laura got out of the car in a blind spot from Sylvia's imaginary cameras. She disappeared into the shadows. I was alone. I looked at the clock. 11:55 p.m. 5 minutes. I closed my eyes. I thought of Richard, his smile, how he called me Mom in that affectionate tone, what it would have been like to see him as a father. I thought of Matthew, his future, all the things he deserved to have. A life without fear, without threats, without shadows. Midnight. My phone vibrated, a text from an unknown number. Come in alone now. I got out of the car. The night air was cold. I could see my breath. I walked toward the main door of the shed. Every step sounded too loud in the silence. The door was ajar. I pushed it. It creaked. The sound echoed off the empty walls. Inside it was dark, almost completely black. Only a little moonlight filtered through the broken windows, creating strange shadows. "Sylvia?" I called out. My voice sounded small, scared. "Close the door," said a voice from the shadows. Sylvia's voice. I closed the door. My eyes adjusted slowly to the darkness, and then I saw her standing in the center of the shed. She wore dark clothes, black jeans, a hoodie. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was short, dyed blonde, but it was her. "You came," she said. She seemed almost surprised. "You said you wanted to talk. I said I wanted my son and the money. Where are they? I want answers first. I want to know why. Why did you kill Richard? Why did you try to kill Matthew?" She laughed, that same cold sound I had heard on the phone. "Why do you think, Karen?" "For the money. Richard loved you. He gave you everything. Richard was a romantic fool. He talked about love and family and the future. I wanted freedom. I wanted to travel, live, not be tied to a house and a crying baby. Then why did you marry him?" "Because he was an engineer. He earned well, he had savings, he had life insurance. It was an investment. I was going to wait 5 years, divorce him, keep half of everything, but then I got pregnant and that ruined my plan." Her words were poison. Each one burned me. "You told him you didn't want the baby." Of course I didn't want it, but Richard became impossible. He changed his will. Everything for the baby. So I had to adapt. If Richard died while I was pregnant, I would receive the insurance, but the baby would inherit the rest. So, the solution was simple. Kill Richard, have the baby, kill him too, keep everything. She was confessing everything, every word recorded, transmitted. The police were listening, but I needed more. "You hired Carl to sabotage the brakes. $2,000. A bargain, considering I gained $500,000 from the insurance. The best investment of my life. And the baby, your own son, was an obstacle, nothing more. I gave birth alone in a cabin I rented with cash. No one knew I was pregnant. I wore baggy clothes. I avoided people. When he was born, I thought about just abandoning him somewhere, but then I remembered the lake where you and Richard used to go. It seemed poetic to end everything where your little family tradition began. I felt sick. I felt rage. I felt all the hate in the world concentrated on the woman standing before me. But you failed. I saved him. Yes, that was annoying, but it doesn't matter, because now I am going to finish the job. Where is Matthew, Karen? I am not going to give him to you. It wasn't a question. And then I saw the gun. She pulled it from her hoodie. Small, black, pointing directly at my chest. Last chance. Where is my son? I pressed the panic button. Once, twice, 3 times. You are never going to touch him, I said. Her finger moved to the trigger. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. I saw the flash, heard the shot. I felt something hit my shoulder hot, burning. I fell backward, and then the shed exploded in motion. The doors burst open, blinding lights, voices shouting, "Police! Drop the gun! On the ground! Now!" I saw Sylvia turn around. I saw the guns pointing at her. I saw she was surrounded, and for a second I thought she was going to shoot again. I thought she was going to get herself killed, but she lowered the gun slowly, dropped it to the floor, raised her hands. 3 officers tackled her, pinned her face down, handcuffed her. She was screaming, insults, threats, but it didn't matter. She was arrested. It was over. Laura ran toward me, knelt beside me. "Karen, stay with me." "I'm okay," I managed to say, although the pain in my shoulder was unbearable. "Did you catch her? Tell me you caught her. We caught her. It's over now. Stay still. The ambulance is on the way. I closed my eyes. It was enough. It was over. Finally, it was over. I woke up in the hospital again. But this time, it was different. This time, I didn't feel despair, but relief, peace. My shoulder hurt where the bullet had passed through the muscle, but it had missed the bone. Luck, the doctor said. 1 inch to the left, and it would have been my heart. Sophia was sitting beside me holding Matthew. When I opened my eyes, she smiled. Look who woke up, she said, coming closer. Someone missed you very much. I took Matthew with my good arm, cradled him against my chest. He smelled of baby powder and hope. He started making little noises. Those little sounds babies make when they are happy. Hello, my love, I whispered. Grandma is okay. Everything is okay now. Laura appeared an hour later. She brought flowers and a tired smile. How do you feel? Like someone who has been shot, I said. But alive. What happened to Sylvia? Arrested, charged with first-degree murder for Richard, attempted murder for Matthew, attempted murder for you, plus a list of other crimes, conspiracy, fraud, obstruction of justice. She is going to spend the rest of her life in prison without possibility of parole. The words were sweet as honey. Justice, finally. The recording worked perfectly. She confessed everything. Her lawyer tried to claim duress, that you forced her to say those things, but the jury saw the whole video. They saw her pull the gun, shoot. They had no mercy. 30 minutes of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. In the following months, I recovered slowly. Physical therapy for my shoulder was painful, but necessary. Sophia kept coming to help with Matthew when I couldn't lift him with my injured arm. Father Thomas brought food. Neighbors I barely knew appeared with casseroles and kind words. She is a hero, the lady from down the street would say. What she did for that baby, risking her life like that. But I didn't feel like a hero. I just felt like a grandmother, doing what any grandmother would do, protecting her own. 2 months after Sylvia's capture, I had another hearing with the judge. This time was different. This time the judge was smiling as she reviewed the documents. Mrs. Karen, she said, I have reviewed all the reports from the last 6 months, the social services visits, Matthew's medical evaluations, progress reports, and I must say I am impressed. My heart beat fast. Matthew is thriving under your care. He is reaching all developmental milestones. He is healthy, happy, loved, and you have proven to be more than capable despite the challenges. Thank you, Your Honor. Therefore, I am granting full and permanent custody of Matthew to Karen, effective immediately. Furthermore, given that the biological mother is incarcerated for life and has lost all parental rights, I authorize adoption proceedings if you wish to proceed. Adoption, to make him legally mine. Not just his grandmother with custody, but his legal mother. Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes, I want to adopt him. Then, so it shall be. Congratulations officially. The gavel fell, and suddenly all the weight I had been carrying for months lifted. It was official. Matthew was mine. No one could ever take him from me, ever. I walked out of the courthouse with Matthew in my arms. He was 8 months old now, chubby and happy. He smiled, showing 2 little teeth. He laughed when I rocked him. He pulled my hair with his chubby little hands. Sophia and Father Thomas were waiting outside. They hugged me. The 3 of us cried from happiness right there on the courthouse steps. You did it, Sophia said. Against all odds, you did it. That night I made a special dinner. Well, as special as it could be with a baby needing constant attention. I invited Sophia and Father Thomas. We ate roast chicken and rice. We toasted with apple juice because none of us drank alcohol. To Matthew, said Father Thomas, raising his glass, to his bright future. To Richard, I said, who is watching us from somewhere proud of his son. To love, added Sophia, which always conquers evil. We drank, we ate, we laughed. Matthew banged on his high chair and squealed with joy, not understanding, but feeling the happiness around him. The months turned into years. Matthew grew. Started to walk. At 11 months, his first word was Nana. I cried when he said it. At 2, he ran all over the house. At 3, he started preschool. Every milestone was a miracle, every day a gift. I talked to him about Richard constantly, showed him photos, told him stories. Your daddy was a good man, I told him. Brave, he loved you even before meeting you. He gave his life to protect you. Daddy, hero, said Matthew with his little voice. Yes, my love. Daddy was a hero, and you will grow up to be as good, as brave, as loving as him. I never told him about Sylvia. That would come later, when he was older, when he could understand. For now, he just needed to know he was loved, that he was wanted, that there were people who had fought for him. On Matthew's 5th birthday, we threw a party in the backyard. We invited all the neighborhood kids. There were balloons, cake, presents. Matthew ran among his friends laughing, so full of life, so different from the purple and motionless baby I had pulled from the lake 5 years ago. Sophia sat beside me on the porch watching the celebration. About how I could have arrived 5 minutes later, about how I could not have looked out the window at that exact moment, about how everything could have been different, but it wasn't. You found him, you saved him, it was your destiny. Or Richard's, I said. Sometimes I think he guided my eyes to the lake that day, that somehow he knew I would be there, that he could trust me to protect his son. Maybe, said Sophia, or maybe you are just an incredibly brave woman who refused to give up. That night, after everyone had gone, after Matthew fell asleep exhausted from so much excitement, I sat alone in the living room. I looked at the photos on the wall. Richard as a baby, Richard at his graduation, Richard on his wedding day, and next to those, new photos. Matthew newborn in the hospital. Matthew taking his first steps. Matthew on his first day of school. 2 generations connected by love, separated by tragedy, united by survival. We did it, Richard, I whispered to his photo. Your son is safe, he is happy, he is growing strong and good, just like you wanted. And although I knew he couldn't answer, I felt something, a warmth, a peace, as if he were there proud, grateful, at peace. Maybe you would have given up if you had been in my shoes. Maybe you would have thought you were too old, too tired, too broken. Or maybe you would have done exactly the same, because that is what love does. It makes you stronger than you ever imagined possible. It makes you fight when everything seems lost. It makes you find hope in the deepest darkness. I don't know what the future holds. I know there will be challenges. I know there will be hard days. I know raising a child at my age won't be easy. But I also know that every day with Matthew is a gift. Every smile, every hug, every I love you, Nana. When I watch him sleeping peacefully in his room, the room that was once his father's, I see not only the child but the promise I made to my son. The promise I made to myself that terrible day on the lakeshore. The promise to protect, to love, to never give up. Some say it was luck that I was looking out the window at that exact moment. Others say it was destiny. Maybe it was a little of both. Maybe it was Richard guiding me from somewhere beyond our understanding. What I know for certain is that when I saw that suitcase sinking in the lake, when I heard that faint sound coming from inside, when I felt Matthew's little heart fighting to keep beating against my chest, I knew nothing would be like before. And you know what? I am grateful for it. I am grateful for the child sleeping under my roof. I am grateful for the chance to see Richard's eyes again, to hear his laughter echoing off the walls of this old house. I am grateful for the chance to love again, to have a purpose, to feel that, despite everything I lost, I also gained something precious. Tragedy finds us all. Sooner or later, it knocks on our door when we least expect it. It snatches away the people we love, the dreams we cherish, the security we take for granted. But what do we do after? That is the question that defines who we are. I could have surrendered to grief when Richard died. I could have shrunk in fear when I saw Sylvia throw the suitcase into the lake. I could have said I was too old, too weak, too broken to be a mother again. Instead, I chose to fight. I chose to love. I chose to believe that even in the ashes of the deepest loss, something new can grow. And it grew. His name is Matthew. Today he is 5 years old. Tomorrow he will be 6, and someday he will be 20, 30, 40. A complete man with his own dreams, his own loves, maybe his own children. I don't know if I will be here to see it all. Probably I won't be. But I know I planted the seeds. I know I gave him strong roots and wings to fly. I know I told him about his father, about the love Richard had for him even before he was born, about the courage it took to defend him. And that will have to be enough. Some nights like this, After the house falls silent and only the ticking of the old clock on the wall remains, I think about the woman I was before that day at the lake's edge. The woman broken by grief, living in the ghosts of the past, letting the days pass without purpose or hope. I barely recognize her now. Because the woman I am today, the woman who chases a 5-year-old through the yard, who sticks stick figure drawings on the refrigerator, who kisses, scrapes, and scares away monsters under the bed, that woman is stronger than I ever imagined being. And it all started with a choice. The choice to run toward the lake instead of running away from it. The choice to open that wet suitcase, even when my heart screamed with fear of what I might find. The choice to fight for the future when the past felt too heavy to carry. It wasn't an easy choice. It wasn't an easy journey. There were days when my back hurt so much from carrying a baby I could barely stand. There were nights when the incessant crying left me on the verge of tears. There were moments when I wondered if I had made a mistake, if I was being selfish thinking I could be a mother again at my age. But then Matthew smiled at me. He said Nana with that sweet voice. He fell asleep in my arms, trusting I would keep him safe. And I knew, in the deepest part of my being, that I hadn't made a mistake. I had done exactly what I was supposed to do. Laura and Sophia remain part of our lives. Laura drops by, occasionally bringing gifts for Matthew, checking how we are. Sophia has become almost an aunt to him. She takes him to the park on Sundays, teaches him about birds and trees, gives him that extra love every child deserves. Father Thomas blesses our house every Christmas. He tells me Matthew is living proof that God works in mysterious ways, transforming tragedy into triumph, pain into purpose. And Sylvia is serving her life sentence without possibility of parole. She can never harm Matthew or anyone else ever again. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks of him, if she regrets it, if any spark of maternal love ever existed in that cold heart. But then I remember the look on her face when she threw the suitcase into the lake, and I know the answer. Some people are incapable of love. Sylvia was one of them. She only cared about money, freedom, her own desires. She saw Matthew as an obstacle, not as the miracle he is. Her loss, my gain, because every morning I wake up to the sound of little feet running down the hall. My bedroom door opens and Matthew jumps into my bed, his dark hair disheveled, his eyes, Richard's eyes, shining with the promise of a new day. "Good morning, Nana," he shouts, throwing his little arms around me, and in that moment all the pain, all the struggle, all the sacrifice is worth it. In that moment I know I would do it all again. I would face Sylvia, take a bullet, fight the entire system, just to have this boy in my life. When people hear our story, they usually say I am amazing, brave, extraordinary, but I don't feel that way. I feel just like a grandmother who did what any grandmother would do, protect her grandson at any cost. The real hero of this story is Richard, who saw through Sylvia's charm, who changed his will to protect his unborn son, who was willing to face a custody battle to keep him safe. Richard, who paid the ultimate price for his love. And the real miracle is Matthew, who survived against all odds, who fought for every breath in those first critical hours, who brought light back to this house that was once dark with grief. As for me, I am just the bridge between father and son, the keeper of their memories, the protector of their future. And it is enough. It is more than enough. Now, if you like this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments which part left you open-mouthed. Oh, and don't forget to join as a member to have access to exclusive videos that I don't upload here. I'll wait for you there.